First, we have to ask ourselves, what is instinctive archery? I can't believe I did that. That was actually the first shot. That was no warm-up shots or nothing. I strung my bow, walked outside, set up the camera, and that was first shot. So, I'm kind of impressed with myself, but hit the exact spot I was looking at. But I'm here to explain instinctive archery because over the past little bit, I've switched to instinctive archery because it works the best for me. That's what I'm passionate about, and keeping it fun and passionate is what you're supposed to do. Don't do something you don't want to do. Now, I could aim and probably shoot a little bit better than I do instinctive when I'm out shooting targets and stuff, but it wouldn't matter because that's not what I want to do. Through my experience of looking through YouTube and online, I've noticed that a lot of people that make videos about instinctive archery either don't know how to explain it or they don't know really what instinctive archery truly is. There's a lot of science behind it. It's like shooting a basketball or throwing a baseball, just with the fact that there's a huge release of energy coming from something foreign. That's not your body. So the first topic I want to go through is it intuitive archery or is it instinctive archery? Because a lot of people are going to tell you, oh no, it's intuitive archery. But the thing is that's just kind of stupid because the word instinctive is in the definition of intuitive. It is literally just a fancier word for instinct. Look in the dictionary. It says instinctive in the definition. Anyways, now that that's off my chest, it's intuitive, it's instinctive, but the true instinctive archery, not what a lot of other people preach what instinctive archery is. A lot of people say instinctive archery doesn't exist, but that's kind of stupid. If you understand what your instinct is, and your instinct is your subconscious mind, there's a part of your brain that you do not control that picks up information a lot faster than your conscious brain. The thing is, yes, instinctive archery takes practice. Shooting a basketball takes practice. Throwing a baseball, pitching, that takes practice. Swinging a golf club takes practice. However, it all comes down to the same thing. You're looking at one spot and you're doing an action to get something to hit that one spot. So to say that archery, instinctive archery is intuitive, you're implying that shooting a basketball, throwing a baseball, pointing, everything is intuitive, but it's not. It's instinctive. Which really it's the same word. I don't even understand why I have to explain this. Anyway, if you ask a lot of people what instinctive archery is, a lot of them are going to tell you that if you just look at the target and where you want to hit, you just pull it back and let go, and that's what happens. The thing is it's a little bit more complicated than that, but yet simpler than that, and I'll get into what I'm talking about later. The complexities of it is your archery form, your release, your back tension, all of that comes into play. If that is not correct and you pluck the string and the arrow's doing this right here and it hits 4 foot over to the right, your instincts were correct. However, you just made a bad shot. You didn't execute good form. So that always plays a difference. Your instincts could be spot on every time, but without a perfect release, or you moving the bow at the release, or any collapsing, blah blah, whatever, that can cause you to miss that one mark, even though your instincts were holding the bow perfectly in line. So the first thing you really need to do is come up with your form, your bow hand, your anchor. I like to hold the bow, I like to palm it, like the bow will rest about right here, and these 3 fingers wrap around and touch it. I don't grab it, but they touch. So that way when I let go, if I try to open my hand, when I let go, a lot of times when the bow goes forward, my hand goes like that, and it causes me to move at the shot. If I put my 3 fingers up against the bow, all I have to do is it just stops. When the bow jumps forward, it just stops. Even though I'm just touching it, it stops, because as it leaps into it, my fingers naturally tense up. My bow hand's always the same. My anchor point and the way my fingers grip the string, my anchor point's always the same. I like to rest the string right up against, let me see if I can get this, right up against, it kind of goes like that. So like the string's kind of angled. So by the time I curve them, this one will kind of be up a little bit farther. But out of these 3 fingers, it goes right in front of this, right in front of this, and then about halfway through this finger. And then I come back, draw with my back, and I make like a C shape with my hand, and then I pull back, and that hooks into the back of my jawbone. My jawbone doesn't move as long as I keep my mouth the same. Now maybe if my mouth is closed compared to my mouth being open, it moves. However, my hand still fits in the same spot, right under my cheekbone, right here. It's right under that cheekbone, tight up against there, and it's locked into that jawbone. It can't come forward unless I release back tension. So as long as I have my back tension, I don't collapse on the shot at all. A lot of people like to do the corner of the mouth. That's fine. The only problem I would say is make sure it is a 2-point contact, because, or 2-point anchor point or whatever, because this can move. Now a lot of people do it and they'll hook it and then they'll push it up or something and do something like that. Yeah, that'll work. My back tension is always the same, and when I'm out shooting, the feather always touches. I like to shoot homemade turkey feathers, shield cut feathers. They're all the same, and they come and they touch the end of my nose right here. They almost always touch my nose right there, and that's how I know my head angle like this is the same. My back tension's usually the same, and you just shoot enough until your body becomes very natural with that exact movement and that exact static position. And then now you're shooting instinctively. Once it becomes completely natural to where you don't have to think about it, you are now beginning to shoot instinctive. All that beforehand was just practice and developing a form. It wasn't instinctive archery. Now that you naturally and instinctively do the same thing every time when you draw the bow and you come back and anchor, you are now starting to shoot instinctive. Not before. You were just figuring out the release. Now, once you get to that exact thing, and you can do that almost every time. You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. You're going to collapse on shots. But as long as you do pretty much the same thing every single time, you are going to start being consistent, and you can start learning to shoot instinctive. Now, the thing of shooting instinctive is looking where you want to hit, pulling back. Your subconscious brain, which is your instincts, picks up what that looks like. When you shoot a basketball, your brain knows the exact movement it needs to take. Your subconscious brain knows the exact movement that it needs to take to get that ball into the basket. It picks it up over time, the exact movement and power every single time. So the more repetitions you go through, the better chance you have. It's the same thing, except your brain just picks up your sight picture. You know in relation where the arrow is to where you want to hit. Your subconscious brain knows it, but your conscious brain doesn't pay attention. It just picks where you want to hit, and it pays attention to that. That's instinctive shooting. Your subconscious is doing all the work. You just pick where your conscious brain just picks where you want to hit. Your subconscious does all the other work. That is instinctive archery. That's why a lot of people that shoot instinctive to get used to a new bow or something of that nature, they'll learn the gap and they'll go back to it, and then they'll go to instinctive, and their brain already knows and is really close. That way they can pick up shooting that bow like that, and they're off to practicing. Now that you know really how to get into instinctive and a pretty good understanding of what instinctive archery is, now I want to talk about hunting. I hardly ever shoot true instinctive when I'm out shooting a target. It's hard to. Your brain has to be completely clear of everything except looking at where you want to hit. And that's something very hard for our generation to do, because our attention spans are screwed because we're fed TikTok and stuff at the age of 2 and iPads at the age of 4. You have to have a clear head. You have to be mindful. Now, when I go hunting, I shot 2 deer this year. Both times, I cannot tell you a single thing that happened because my complete instinct took over. I picked where I want to hit, I pulled back the bow, and it just happened. I never like consciously thought about letting go of the string. I never consciously thought about where I was anchored. I never consciously thought about my back tension. I never consciously thought about where the arrow tip was or where the bow was or anything. I just looked where I wanted to hit, drew back, and shot. It just happened. I did not think or actively release the string with my conscious mind. It just happened. My trigger, you can't really shoot a clicker. If you're shooting true instinctive, you can't shoot a clicker, you can't shoot anything because it brings you out of the mindfulness. And instead of focusing on exactly where you want to hit, you focus on exactly where you want to hit. But since you have no reference, once you take your attention to the clicker, you come away from where you want to hit because you're not completely mindful of where you're shooting. With a clicker or something like that, and then you go hunting, or some kind of trigger when you go hunting, you don't get that complete instinctive feeling. Your subconscious brain doesn't tell you where to hold because you're not thinking. You're not just doing, you're thinking. You have to just do. Instinctive archery is just doing and not thinking. If I think about the shot, then I'm not shooting instinctively. If I'm just doing the shot, then I'm shooting instinctive. When I shot a doe this year, the first deer killed was at 30 yards. The only active thought I had in my brain before I pulled the bow back was, will this arrow get over the tree line? And at 30 yards, it's hiking up pretty high. I knew it'd probably get over it, so I hit the top limb. But that doe was at 30 yards, broadside. I knew she would duck. She was alert. I picked a spot low in the shoulder. It just happened. I don't even remember my brain I don't remember ever thinking about even drawing the bow in my brain. It just happened. It was all an instinctive movement. I don't know if the feather touched my nose or not. I don't know if I was at full back tension. I don't know because it happened instinctively. I shot another doe at about 15 yards. She came in and I pulled back. I picked a spot, pulled back. That time I did think about when I pulled back. I will say that. I did think about when I drew back because she had just walked out of the opening. However, after that, I just went blank, focused on where I wanted to hit, and then let her go. Just let her go and hit her right in the shoulder. Both times right in the shoulder is probably just because the shoulder was the first thing I could see something defined to pick something small. I don't know if the feather touched my nose. I don't know if I was at full back tension. I was at a completely different angle, shooting down out of a tree both times. I don't know. I don't know what happened. It just happened. So that's the difference between true instinctive and most what people think instinctive is. I think it's where a lot of people just don't go into enough detail. But now I want to show you something. I have 4 clips of me shooting. Yesterday I took 4 different clips of me shooting. Each one of them are different. When you shoot aiming, most of the time your whole entire shot process is going to be the same. In instinctive, I might hold for longer, and I might not draw back and be exactly on right instant. I might draw back and be high. I don't think about it, but my brain knows that the arrow tip and the sight picture is too high and it needs to come down. So as I'm staring, it just happens. My arm comes down naturally. I don't think about it. I don't actively bring my arm down. It just happens. Whenever I'm hunting, it's the same thing. It just happens. But I want to show you those clips because I just want you to see the difference in them. I held longer, or I just instantly, I was already on, so my psychological trigger is just when it hits there. That's what happens. When it gets to where it needs to be, my brain just lets it go. I have no control over it. I honestly have no control over it. It's hard for me to draw back and not shoot because my psychological trigger is when it's on. Sometimes that can cause a problem though because if I'm moving down, or I move down too quickly, or I move across or up too quickly, I might follow through with it, and then the shot goes low, high, left, right, whichever way I'm moving. So that can be a problem. You just practice and get through it, and then your brain finally picks up that you're missing when you do that, and you just kind of stop. You just gotta shoot enough. I think that'll wrap up this video. That's probably the best that I can do explaining a true instinctive shot. All in all, it's about, did you notice how your form was? Did you notice anything about the shot? I did miss one deer, and I thought about it. I missed two. One was because I hit a limb, but we won't talk about that. That was my own stupidity. I missed one because I was rushing it, so I thought about it. I didn't have time to settle my mind. Learn to settle your mind. Learn to be mindful so that you can only focus on looking at where you want to shoot and let your subconscious do the work. If I'm just focusing on where I want to hit, but I actively know to move, then I'm probably shooting split vision. I probably looked at the arrow tip. It took me a long time to be able to get past that and just let it happen. I went into a little bit more complex detail. If you can hit the like button, that'd be greatly appreciated. If you can subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. It'll help me out, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that if you couldn't truly understand instinctive, that now you do, and you know that it's not intuitive, it's instinctive. Then I guess that's it. Just remember, y'all keep feeling the spirit.